Okay, let's get going. And I need to get my screens in order. So the agenda of today, start with some introduction, some objectives with the webinar from our view, and then talk a bit about management system and how to acquire a capability. And then we go into to the core of the speeches today. And in the end, we will have time for questions and answers. You can either write them in the chat or just ask them by turning on your microphone.
Right, so I am Andreas. Worked as a systems engineer for almost 20 years now after my PhD at KTH Stockholm. And my focus on working with systems is that they should be very, very usable and get the results timely and precisely. And this is done by having the system working in such a way that people understand what they are doing and also make their lives easier. So it's I'm very practically oriented.
And I'm Tord Ringenhall. I'm running Taipuva in Sweden, and I have some 20 years in product development and product management. Maybe a bit more into the product management side of things, but that's what I've been doing. And one of my drivers in life, I realized a few years back, I want to link all data, not copying it, making sure it's available. And that's regardless if it's product information or if it's other kind of data. And then another theme of myself is I prefer to walk the talk. So if you're developing products, have procedures and policies for that. If you're developing a new method or implementing a management system, you should have the same principles about that. Taipuva, briefly about us. We're a consulting company, but we're also a partner to Siemens Digital Industry Software and a reseller of a tool called Polarian ALM. And what we're doing, as you might understand, we are implementing a method based on systems engineering in these tools, with the idea of being more effective in product executions and product development. So we are called a smart expert partner to Siemens when it comes to the tool, but then we're working with a big variety of customers, not all in medtech, but most in some sort of regulated industry, that they have a various degree of external requirements on how they do things, what documentations is needed, etc. So what we're doing is we see three parts of what we are working with. So a fundamental part is the capability development. So understanding, bringing in the complete picture when you're gaining capability in the direction, the people and the way of working, as well as the tools in IT. We believe that the tool is just a tool. You need to know how to use it, basically. Then we have quite a bit of operational support when it comes to details on how to work with requirements, how to work with testing or risk management, etc., as well as some product management and product management capabilities. And of course, we have some IT running tools and connecting them and linking to Active Directories, etc. So, but that's kind of a given. And then we have a rather big and deep experience with this tool that we're working with. So I counted it a few weeks back, and I think in the team we're getting close to 100 years of experience working with these kinds of tools. And we have selected to work with Polarian. That is, we believe, is a versatile tool managing quite a few aspects of the product and project management and documentation of that. So today, as I said, we're doing a bit of an introduction, some objectives, and then going in some management systems. And then Andreas will take the part of the capability and the digitalization. So I will continue to speak a bit, and Andreas will be the fun guy, showing you what you should think about. So today we want to give you a bit of overview on how we see quality management, and management systems in general, what that means, and then giving some hands-on tips on deployment. Where we identified some success factors that we are happy to discuss with you as well in the end, because of course you have experience. And then we will also tell you a bit about some courses we will be doing together with the Swedish Medtech later this fall. So management system, starting kind of on a big picture. What is management system? So looking in Wikipedia, you see that it's a set of policies, processes, and procedures used by an organization to ensure that it can fulfill the tasks required to achieve its objectives. So this is very high level. But we have some keywords here. Policies, processes, and organizations are keywords in this. And then you have different styles of management systems that I will briefly talk about. And what we see is the ISO 9000, the quality management system. That is kind of the foundation of setting a bit of the terminology and the basis for other management systems. So if you simplify things, the main aspects is that you need to plan, do, check, and act. That's kind of a foundation of how to work. And then you have, depending on which one, you have objectives in the environmental performance, if you're talking about ISO 14000, or information security if you're talking about ISO 27000. But these are different management systems, but that have similarities. So with the picture saying the same thing, so we have the foundation in ISO 9000 with the concepts and terms. Today, of course, today's webinar will focus on quite a bit on the ISO 13485, that I believe is quite relevant for you guys, as well as the risk management part in 14971. But then we see others that we believe is relevant, and why we think what we are learning in other industries might be relevant for you, even if you're not in automotive. We see a lot of stuff happening in the automotive when it comes to the cybersecurity. Of course, you can say that is covered by the risk management in the Medtech, but it's not as defined as it is for automotive right now. But what we're learning there, I think, can be quite relevant for you in the Medtech scene as well. When you're starting to connect devices over the air or over the net. So how do you make sure that that is secure? And of course, more and more data, more and more sensitive data, you need to make that secure. So it's good to have a view on what's happening in other industries. Is our belief. But zooming in onto the medical device scene. Of course, we have a few that are most important, as I said, 13485 and 14971. So we are having the kind of the view of quality management from a product development point of view. Of course, we know there are other parts of quality management. You have the supplier compliance, you have some post-market surveillance and things and so on, etc. So we understand that it is a big and complex, but our foundation is typically within the product development part of things. Right. And as I said, you have a wide range of processes and features from the quality handbook to the standard operating procedures and complaint and preventive actions and procurement and production, etc. And all of this is kind of what you need to think about and bring into your management systems. And a risk that we see that when you start to digitalize, that you do bits and pieces, and then you start to create digital islands. So it's one of our messages. You need to make sure that you're not creating these digital islands, that you think of the big picture. See that you actually down the line can connect different processes, and that you can potentially have them in the same IT landscape. You don't have to have the same tool for everything, but at least making sure that things can be connected. That is an important aspect. And we know there are tons of tools that out, so it's kind of hard to select. And all tools says that they will solve everything. So here you need to have a bit of your own mind set and what you try to accomplish, and not try to cut corners, because that will always come back at you. And in this picture, I intentionally put the dotted line to the document management, because that's kind of how it normally works after a while in a company, that you're fixing the document management part in the end. So you have what you're doing, and then when it's time to prepare for sending into your notifying body or anything, then you're catching up all the documentation. So we believe there's a better way to do that you continuously working with the document management, keeping it up to date, making sure that you have tools and systems that allow you to be working and documenting as you work. So that's our main thought. Oh, sorry. And then I hand over to Andreas.
Right. So now we have sort of painted the picture of the problem, which is very important, that we recognize what the situation we are trying to solve, and well, to find out what are our goals, what do we need. So please continue here. I would say we don't create an ability, we acquire the ability. I read that somewhere, and I really like the term, that we work rather doggedly on each part here, and with this picture in mind, we sooner or later we will have this ability to work with the management system as complete. The most important thing in the beginning is what we talked about now, the black, the why. Why are we doing this? Why are we setting up a management system? So what are our goals? And then of course on top, among the green ones, are the people, because without people we don't get anywhere. So we have to find the right people. We have to motivate ourselves if we are not already motivated, but it's the people who are going to achieve the results always. And to support that, we know we have to say, okay, what are we going to do first? Are we going to collect requirements? Well, that's what we are doing. Are we going to test? Yes. And what do we mean by testing? Is it validation? Is it verification? Is it well, integrations and so on? When we talk about product development, we can also talk about the design of our processes in the same manner. To me, it's the same thing. It's just two different systems or subsystems of a complete quality system. And then, of course, good tools will support this. Excel and Word are tools, but maybe not that good. Organizations have people full-time staffed just to keep track of traceability within Excel sheets, for example. So that might be something that you want to improve to acquire the ability to work properly with. Yeah, and then of course we have to train people, and that's also a legal requirement. and to have support on all these things. Let's go continue toward some central features. As Tord said, there should be a single point of truth. The data should be not copied, but available as a master somewhere. And if we want to have a management system, we should make sure that everyone thinks that, well, if I want valid data, I should search for them in the management system. And now I'm not just talking about the IT system or the tool. Well, all the processes and everything we are talking about is within the system. And then if we have several systems or within one, just make sure that the data are linked and that they are, well, automatically transferred if necessary, that you know that the test is testing the correct requirement, that design are getting the correct requirements, and so on. And of course that the traceability is automatic, that you don't have to do this manually, because that's error prone and low energy. And this means both the quality assurance work and the product data of all kinds. And by product data, we mean that your user needs, for example, those are product data. It's about the product or the system that you're developing, for example, or selling. It's not just the drawings or the code. And this puts some demands on how you work. So one thing you really need, which is quite difficult, is the information model. And by that I mean, what is a requirement? What is a test? What is a process? How do you model this and show that, for example, we have a simple rule: a process must have an input and an output, and those are defined as some kind of object. And a requirement is one other object. And how do they relate to each other? There are rules for connecting them. You can't say that a test is verifying a user need, it's validating, and so on. What do we mean by all this? So this puts quite a demand on theoretical knowledge, and for that part also practical knowledge about both systems architecting and project management. Another rule that to make it happen is that you work iteratively. People can't, I mean, the human brain can't fathom, for example, a project that is 9 months long to implement something. It doesn't excite the brain to do this. So we just iterate, try something at a small scale or in an incomplete version, just to see, okay, does this work? This is very important to succeed. And the third thing I think is very important is that people have a hard time differentiating between a project and the product it delivers. And that's why I write this is actually hard. I think it took me at least 3 or 4 years when I started on systems engineering to really decouple this, because within the organization, especially engineers, they are really, it's ingrained. And it's not because people are stupid, it's usually a cultural thing that you identify so much with the project that you forget that the product is something that is discoupled from the project. So the V model is about a product, a system, it's not a project model. You can't run a project from the V model, and that's why people complain about how bad it is actually. So the V model that we always come back to, that will be in the next slide already, is how do you sort or differentiate between different types of product data and processes. So please, Tord. And you see, we use the V model, which is kind of unfair that if you're doing the real work, you're at the bottom of the structure. I would rather have it out. When you go up in this picture, you go outwards, and when you go down, you just go inwards. But it's still it's quite visible and understandable. So all these processes that we are showing here to the left, the planning and task management, how you run things and make sure that things get done and according to quality processes and so on. All these processes have to be taken care of in a management system, and we have to remember that there are people everywhere here that have to do the job. So we can continue. This V model, it supports efficiency, that you incorporate the regulatory, the risk work, the testing, everything in the beginning of the project, so that simply people know what to do. And you can also reuse old stuff, because when you do it the second or third time, the V model supports documentation that is not dependent on the exact solution, but rather what is it going to achieve, and how can we test this. And the documentation that we send to Intertech or somewhere, it will be much more about showing the functionality and adherence to regulatory compliance, compliant with regulatory, rather than what is usually happening, that the technical description is kind of in the way for this. So if we continue, this information model that I talked about that is hard, this is one way you can visualize it. So you have a few types of information, and this is very easy to implement in an IT system, because programming, object-oriented programming is about defining objects and defining methods and functions. So here we have this, we call it the stakeholder need, but it can be a user requirement or whatever term you would like here. And we have test cases, and they work the same for stakeholder needs and the system requirements. So we just have one type of test case, for example. And we have test results as a certain kind of object. But to do this, you need competence, and this is not easy. Again, you have to formalize and categorize correctly your information. So, for example, you can say in the stakeholder need that it has to be easy to use the system. What does that mean? You have to formulate that a bit better. So, for example, I would say, okay, if we should test this, we should try out the system with 25 people, and 20 of them should be finished with the task within 7 minutes. Then it means that it is easy to use, and this is the first time they see it. So, and then I would say that is a stakeholder need. And then you design system requirements about there should be a screen that is this size and so on. So you don't want to write about the screen size in the stakeholder need. And so there are two things that you need here: the model and the competence to sort your information into the model. And risk management is by far the most complicated here, because there are so many things involved here, and how you formulate the risk and the hazard and the harm and the causes and the effects and everything that you do here. And you will have information objects about how to manage the risk, project tasks, and so on. And you want to link all these, and if you do that correctly, you will have an easy time managing your risk management and showing it to the notified body that you have done it right. I could go on with this forever, so let's continue. One important thing is that for a tool is that the workflow is controlled by the tool. And preferably you should be able to control both single information objects, like a test case or a requirement, and a complete specification if you work that way, and most people do. And also make this as simple as possible. You can easily extend to 11 steps if you want to, but the basic process here, what you actually need here is 3 statuses. Draft, which means that it can be edited. Frozen, yeah, now we are going to send it to review and then approved, and then everything is locked. You might assign the information object to a new version of the product or something like that, but not change it. So, and in a tool, you can control these statuses and how applying rules to when you can move from draft to frozen or frozen to approved, for example, that you can't have unresolved comments if you want to move to approved. Someone has to acknowledge that the comment is read and understood. So that can help with tools, but also it's important with the workflow that keep the process simple in the tool and help with good guidelines instead. Right? So if we are going to do this all in reality, I've talked a lot about what you need to achieve on a deeper level here. We can go back to what is needed, Tord. Next slide, yeah. So again, we have to fill this model, and this is also only a model, as you now all understand, that we are using to make sense and to solve this. But well, we fill this box here part by part, and we do it iteratively. An example plan that we can show now is that during 3 months, and this is kind of a maximum plan, and when we have quite some resources assigned from the organization, is that we install the tool with some suitable templates, which this is very important that we can reuse our experience to start to have a good starting point. Where processes are already pre-configured in the tool, and there are documentations and training materials and such, well, at an 80% level, and then there is some tailoring to do. which comes in the other processes and the areas here. So usually we start with the requirements management because that's well, the requirements are always a starting point for anything anyway, and it's quite popular and it's easy to get going. And then at various stages we can work on the test management and risk and change management and so on. And at the same time develop the standard operations procedures or reading them as they are within the organization and tailor the system to follow them whenever necessary. This can also mean the validation of the tool as as validated for medical devices.
If I'm adding some here, Andreas.
Yes, please.
So the idea is during a fairly quick and short time, you can actually cover all these different aspects, as well as making sure that you're documenting it according to your quality management system, so you can be prepared to validate the tool as well. Because when validating your quality management system, you need to have it documented. You need to have your requirements there as well. So even if you're implementing the tool for a product development project, you should still also have objectives for the implementation of the tools. So your part of the delivery should be implementing the tool as well as delivering on your product development. So that's kind of the idea we have, that the most effective way to implement digital management system is to do some work in parallel, some actual work, not just description on your way of working.
Yes, and to validate, you have to write down the requirements on the tool, in the tool. So the requirements on processes and the process documentation should also be in the tool. So you see the tool as its own system, and then that's the way how you can actually validate your tool that you in practice. We can take the next slide. So we have got quite some questions, quite a number of questions about how can you do this in 3 months, and there are some factors that are needed for success, and we have done it in a few companies, Medtech and otherwise, in 3 months. But you need competence, as I've been speaking about, that you understand the information model and how it works and how you can implement it in the organization and use the terms that people are comfortable with. You have to understand how a project model is working and well, project management. And understand what a process is, and yeah, this takes some competence. You have to have commitment from senior management because this is an investment, and therefore it should also pay off. And if you don't get commitment, this investment might just go down the drain because it will, well, people's energy and resources will pour out somewhere, and it might be delayed and everything. That's not a good idea. And that's why we, if I go to the bottom already, that you write in the project charter that we should have this kind of capability, acquire this capability during this project. It has to be a real project, not an internal development project. Those are, I shouldn't say they are doomed to fail, but it's very often that they fail. So that you write this. What is the project? So that the project manager has to as deliverables this capability within well, that the organization can use the tool, and that the requirement management and risk management are implemented, for example. when you run it in a real project, people will feel that, yeah, this is the real thing. We should work with it. This is not an internal development project that maybe someone else is responsible for, and the results will be usable in 2 years. This is here and now. That's a definite success factor. You need the right people, of course, of all kinds, and not everyone wants to do this. It's also a failure point that you put engineers or someone to. You have to. A common thing is to say everyone shall write their own requirements, and I think that's completely wrong, because it's not easy to write requirements. It takes formulation capability, and you have to train for it and understand this. And for many people, this is just well, maybe they are not very comfortable with writing and formulating and so on. But you can always find the people who actually enjoy this, like I do. So find 2 or 3 people and let them interview the subjects instead, and help them write. To get some ghost writers, so both for test cases and change requests and everything. It's a nice thing, but to think that everyone should work in the system. Also, another aspect of this is that so many people will write something and learn the system, and then 6 months later they're going into the phase that they have to review and rewrite, and there may be a new project and so on. And then 6 months later they have to relearn the system, and that is just a complete waste of time. And then the organization has to be prepared for iterative work. You don't have to get it perfect. You should definitely analyze your situation, for sure, but get going early and test test a lot of things, and do rework. And then after some time, there have been enough people touching this that they feel that they have been engaged with it, and they have had their voice heard, and so on. So it's been anchored within the organization. There are so many beneficial effects of doing iterative work when doing this. And then, of course, simplicity. So when you use the tool, it's very easy. Everything is understandable. It's clear. When we say that we should keep the procedures lean, but I don't dare to use that word, so I say sleek instead. So, for example, just 3 states of the workflow, but you have lots of guidelines, lazy dogs, everything. Click here in the system if you don't understand what this is about, and make everything very user-friendly. That also saves a lot of time. Right. I think I have been having my, what do you call a fire speech in Swedish. Tord, can you take the next one?
Yes, so to sum up, so when we're talking about digitalization of management systems, there are some key features or common features. Of course, you need to think about the traceability and the audit trail. That's where systems comes in. That should support with that. You shouldn't accept a system that say that you're doing part of the traceability in one tool and another part in another tool. This needs to be connected, otherwise it fails, for sure. And then the fundamentals of the management systems, the plan, do, check, act procedure. So follow that in everything you do. That's always a good thing.
Yeah, it's an iterative work.
Yes. And of course, the tools should support your normal work. So you have a quality management systems today. So bringing that into digital tools, you should have the electronic records and electronic signatures, and everything should be digital. So that's kind of the idea of things. And I mean, in the core essence, as I see it, the management systems, what they are about, that is, you should document how you work, and you should work as you have documented. I mean, that's the essence of the things. So, to be allowed to put your products on the market, then it should follow the standards and regulations that are relevant for the markets where you put your products. So it's kind of simple, really, but you know, the devil is in the details. You need to keep a clear focus what needs to be done, and remember, it doesn't have to be complex, because adding complexity is easy, but keeping things simple is a tough part. And there's a lot of what ifs and so on that you need to manage. So in running these things, as Andreas said, implementing an electronic quality management system, you need to have some strong minds with strong support that can manage these discussions when implemented. We see when you have some champions running things, then you will succeed. But it requires some stamina as well, as you know. So this is a short webinar where we give a bit of our view on things, on how you should work on this. We haven't gone into the tools itself, but what you should be looking for in tools. We will, during the fall in November, do a deeper dive into this. So we have set up a course together with Pernilla at Swedish Medtech. So we will do 2 half days, continuing diving deeper into this subject, giving more hands-on things. So the course is up on the webpage of Swedish Medtech. You can find it. November 8th is the start, and I think we start with lunch that day.
Yeah, we do. Start with lunch, and then we have a half-day afternoon.
Yes. And the second day we plan to do through Teams or Zooms or whatever means we have. So one on face-to-face and one session digital. So that is our material, and now we will open up for questions if you have any, or was everything clear as?
Thank you very, very much to Tord and Andreas. I will see if I have any questions in the chat. It is in Swedish, I'm just going to read it out, and you whoever wrote it, if you want to adjust it anyway, just feel free to do that. Vi pratar om kvalitetsledningssystem och avgränsar oss till produktutveckling. För mig tycker jag man ska prata om ledningssystem, och då ingår även exempelvis miljö och arbetsmiljö. Hur ser ni på det? Har ni någon kund som implementerat helheten i ert system?
Well, should I answer in Swedish or English?
Ja, vi kanske gör det.
So in English, so now we've been talking mainly about product development, and the question was, what about the other things? The work, the environment, and the working. How do you say that? The work health.
Working environment.
Working environment, guidelines, etc. And have we had any customer implementing everything? So far we don't have anyone that has done the full everything, but we have people that are getting that are on that stretch, and we don't see any real difference if you're implementing according to risk management system, or if you're having an environmental management system. It's more or less the same procedures and the same type of documentation, and you need to also set the requirements on those systems. So when having an audit on checking, are you fulfilling the management systems that you say you are? The documentation and the structure that the tools bring is perfectly matched to it. So, but your exact example, we haven't reached that point yet. We're getting there.
Good answer anyway.
Yeah, I could also say that this is a system to control the working environment is not different in essence from any other management system. I've been working with fire safety, for example. That's a part of working in environment, but that also includes reporting mechanisms on well, if you see something that's dangerous, there should be a process or somewhere safe to report this. So that's one part of the working environment, and you could do skyddsombud for what's the rules for skyddsombud.
Yes. Good. Thank you.
Did you want to add anything, Eva, or are you happy with
lots of questions pops up in my mind, but I need to look at the system, and I will reach out to you later if I can formulate more questions.
Perfect.
Please do, Eva.
Sure.
Thank you very much. We have a question from Mikael Karlsson. Please go ahead.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I've found it interesting that you're kind of hijacking a project for the implementation phase of your product development tool. And I want to hear about a little bit why and your experiences, but because from my experience that you first kind of validate the tool for the intended purpose for the organization and see the effects on how it could affect the quality management system processes, and then you train the users in different levels. So I'm interested in how the experience of hijacking a project for the implementation.
You or me, Andreas?
My argument is that you get much more focus from the organization and from senior management if they say that this is an investment that we will try out the new way of working in a real project. People will be much more focused, and you will learn much faster. And it can be in the project charter that we should have IBM Doors validated as a requirement management tool for the organization after this project. So that could be a project deliverable. So what I'm meaning here is before you have validated, you have to do a lot of activities, and you actually do them within the project. But you have
to add to that as well. It's mainly about getting the focus and getting things done. So if you do it, doing everything kind of on paper first and implementing in the system and validating the system, it's not given that you have covered all things. Of course, you will cover it from the ISO standard point of view, but in your organization, are you actually covering all processes that you actually are doing? Because the point of a management system is that it's, as I said, you should document how you work, and you should work how you document it. So if you're missing that loop a bit, then we see a bit of risk. So to me, it's a success factor to be in real work, because the academic work tend to take a bit more time and might not be as relevant for the organization in the end.
I agree some points, but I think also it's also stated in the standards that you should validate the tool before using it.
Yes.
So there could be a conflict. I don't know really in detail how you do it, but
no, but of course, every one of you has a quality management system. So during the phase of getting it validated, you will have a bit of a double booking in a way. So and what to be frank, what we're doing at our clients, if we're in that process that they haven't validated the tool yet, is we're preparing all documents in the new tool. And then the formal review and approval is done in the old way, if it's paper-based or if it's an older QMS. That is not what we're talking about here.
Yeah, so, I like the idea about implement it like in a hard way and in an actual project, because then you can't really escape from it, and probably it will be successful, but it can also be a risk.
Yeah, of course, you need to manage that part as well. And but since the result is kind of the same as if you've been writing everything in Word and Excel, and you can do the review and so on. But starting to use the tool, you get all the bits and pieces in place, and then you can do the formal review and approval of your documentation in your existing quality management system, which is quite often the case in that meantime. Still, having a good tool in the background, you are generating the traceability that you can just export and say, this is the traceability. So instead of manually doing that in an Excel sheet, which is a nightmare to keep up to date, in my view. So
okay, thank you.
I would like to add that also I've seen a few times that the organization they try to do the whole full Monty in one project, and then it takes 9 months or 18 months, and it can even fail. So the idea of iterative work and taking one process at a time will be very important. You don't have to do it all. You can start with just validating the requirement management in the tool and then continue in the next project, or you do it in the pre-study, or try to take it in chunks. That will make things work.
So we have an example from a medical device company called Bull Medical, where in their new product development work, they implemented the tool along with their new platform. So when they needed the intended use to be documented, they actually validated. They did the documentation in the tool that we were talking about, the Polarian tool, and then they validated the tool just before they sent in the documentation. So they took the only part that managed the intended use, validated that, and then they continued with the next part in the next phase. So they used their project to implement the tool as well. But of course, they are an existing company. They have a quality management system in place since before. So in some part, they needed to have a bit of double documentation in that journey. But it's fully possible, and it's quite effective, I would say. Okay, and anyone more?
Anyone else who wants to ask a question? Everything is klart as korvspad, maybe?
In English, that's clear as mud, right?
True.
Okay, well, if you're thinking of more questions afterwards, you can reach out to us. So you can find us on taipuva.se, unless you remember our names. You're welcome to reach out on us on LinkedIn if you want to just follow us and see what we're talking about.
I will be sending you an evaluation for this morning. Andreas, Tor, and I will be happy if you answer that and give us your feedback. What was good and what could we improve? And as we've been talking about, we have this course in November, starting on the 8th of November. So please read more about that. I will send you some links to that as well. Feels like we are content for today. Yeah. Thank you all very much. And please reach out to us, Tor and Andreas, if you have any questions.